Hi, welcome to another video, and today I'm going to be talking about a thing I often hear with especially people with understanding of postural correction and the old using a ratio of 3-to-1 pulling movements versus pushing movements to enhance postural alignment and basically improve the shoulder girdle. So I'm going to discuss that. First thing I'm going to look at the rowing action itself, and in this sort of squat row is where we often see some issues that begin with this. And first problem that we would see, very common to beginners, is where the elbows are tucked right in real close. They're actually they pretty much are touching her torso here. You actually need to have the elbows about a fist width away from the body there. And the reason for that is, firstly, it stops overactivation of the rhomboids, which people think, oh, but that's a good thing. No, it's not, because it'll really restrict the scapula into the upward overhead movements that create impingements, and it creates depressed shoulders. The rowing actions are good, but when they're done like this, they create huge amount of trouble. So they will create problems in the neck and shoulder impingement. The other thing that we want to see, so we'll see Kim doing a couple of these now, and we'll see her doing a bit better form. So that's where she's over retracting. You can see she's got really good scapular movement. You can really see her scapula moving quite well in this exercise. So when the elbows are moving out, there's not that excessive amount, and you're getting an even amount of workload. You see this one, she didn't over retract. There's an even amount of workload, the weaker part of the rear deltoid muscles, and they're all being shared, so that where it's not being dominated by here. All right. Now the other thing, I'm not sure if I go back to the beginning. The other thing is when people are coming up, we don't want to see the elbows moving too far backward. If they go too far behind the person, the front of the shoulder right here moves too far out of the socket. So it basically stretches the front of the anterior capsule of the shoulder, which makes it more unstable. So it makes the arm bone here more unstable when it's sitting inside the socket. All right, so you don't want to overstretch it by pulling back too far. All right, so you need to learn how to control it. This is where it's a little bit harder with the cables, and you'll see in a second with the bent over row it's a lot easier. All right, so cable rows are good, but if they're done excessively and really working with that excessive amount of retraction there, that's no good to you. All right, so this is where I find the barbell bent over row is actually a better choice. It's just a little bit more complicated exercise because it includes that bending action. So if you're unable to do the deadlifts very well, then this may be a poor choice here. If someone with back pain, Kim's got a beautiful setup here, so you can really see she maintains a perfect alignment straight away. Now you'll see when I come front on, actually I'll just play this and you'll see her elbows. They come a little bit too far behind her, but nowhere near as much as the cable ones do. All right, so you can see the bars are pretty much right at her belly there, and she's got a nice sort of a head and neck, so she's not pushing her head forward. You'll see from front on, the best part of this is the barbell. Where there's limitations with barbells sometimes, the same limitations that we see with bench presses that cause issues actually do good things on the pulling stuff. And you can see, look at the width of her arms here. Right, there's no way she can overly retract with her hands. We've got them locked in, being that distance apart. Remember before how I said you don't want them to come in close? If she grabbed the bar close, obviously that could happen, but it feels very unnatural to do that. All right, and again, only probably beginners would do that. But this is a perfect example of how you get that real even amount of workload between the big heavy scapular retractors of rhomboids and middle traps versus the smaller guys of the rear deltoids, and even part of the rotator cuff being involved here. All right, so now if we were to keep going and do another rowing movement in the belief that this is going to create better balance for the shoulder, and this is where we will often see the reason this comes about is for the old upper cross syndrome where the pecs, we've been told to weaken the pecs with stretches and then strengthen through the antagonists of the rhomboids and trapezius and whatnot to basically pull you in a better posture. Not only is that not true at all, because there's so much more issues that are created from around the scapula from doing that. it basically ignores the fact that the shoulder moves in 360 degrees. So this example of the dumbbell row here, and Kim's got good form on this one, basically we just really overloaded the shoulder, like with 3 movements, and you could be stretching the pecs as well and thinking you're doing a great thing. All you were really going to do is lead to a depressed shoulder. So you're really leading to a depressed shoulder, scapular dysfunction, and eventually neck pain and shoulder pain. So the counter to all those, in this case, we're going to use like a cable press. We could have used a bench press or a push-up if we wanted to, but we've only got one set of exercises or one block of exercises versus 3 others. So you could do 9 sets of rowing movement to only 3 sets of pushing. All right. I have sometimes used more pushing than pulling because this was going to be the correction. An example of that would be with a person with a wing scapula, where the serratus anterior is the problem, and I'll only get that involved in pushing actions. All right. So until I develop that strong pushing action to get them out of retraction, I'm only going to serve to make them worse. And again, that would be another example with neck pain, where we see that quite a lot. So technique on this is really perfect. I would, and again, like just looking at things in terms of a push and pull perspective, thinking it's creating balance of the shoulder, you'd really need to look at wood chops and things like that are working in diagonal patterns, so coming high to low or going low to high. So I'm getting all these different angles of the shoulder and getting all different muscles involved, learning to control the humeral head within the socket there. So I'm learning to try and just keep it positioned in there with all of the various movements of the shoulder, not just for horizontal pushes and pulls. All right, so again, check the description under the video, because I've put a good article there that you can read that describes all of this and all of the different factors involved. But this is just some of the common mistakes I see with pulling movements, and really it's, apart from the exercise technique, I see that the overuse of pulling exercises in the belief they're doing you good, where you really need to treat each person on its own case, and some will need more pushing than others. You know, in certain cases, a lot of people will need overhead movement. If they have already a depressed shoulder, I'll be trying to get to overhead movements, you know, like lifting dumbbells above, things like that. So again, check the description underneath the video, and it'll give you a lot more insight into how I might do that. And there's plenty of other videos I've done on specific things before. This is just taking a quick look at that push and pull ratio. All right, so hope you enjoyed that video. See you on our next one.